If anyone's ever gone out and dated after a divorce, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you've been out of the dating game for 25 years and now you're going in, you're showing up to dates in sweatpants.
I knew you'd have a metaphor for this, James.
Your dad jeans and your New Balance sneakers.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same.
Welcome aboard the 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast.
Rock on. You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
It's a show by professional pilots for professional pilots.
I looked back at them and I said, I don't think we're at the right airport. And they go, I don't think we are either.
Each episode, we bring you fascinating conversations with industry experts.
I think I should be a go-to on how to deal with 63, 64-year-old men.
You're going to chase it like a dog chasing a school bus.
But we're not just about the serious stuff. We're here to have fun.
And I like to sit with pilots a lot of times. I always say they're better looking than Tom Cruise.
It's a whole thing.
The 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast is your destination for everything aviation, whether you're cruising in the flight levels or just starting your journey.
Back on the show, our friend, the sorcerer of all things pilot hiring, the wizard of preparation as a professional pilot, James Onieal.
I'm slightly disappointed I wasn't introduced with a flute.
Well, that was first on my list. Do we play the flute here?
No, it's not a furlough. It's different.
It's not a furlough.
We cannot broaden the scope of the flute.
Yeah.
It's very pointed, very narrow qualifications.
That's right. James, welcome back to the program. If you're new to the program, James Onieal is our Sherpa in the mountains, guiding us through all things career related for professional pilots. Big news over the weekend. I'm sure all pilots have seen that Spirit has ceased operations, I believe, as of 3 a.m. on Saturday morning. We were recording this on Monday, May 4th. We're going to talk a little bit today about what this means if you're a Spirit pilot, but more importantly, what this means if maybe you're not a Spirit pilot, but you're trying to get a job, at what this is going to mean for you in your job search. So, James, welcome to the program. Maybe just kind of give us your initial observations about what happened this weekend.
Yeah, so Spirit wound down. There's kind of, there's a bunch of people that are going to be impacted by this, but the two that kind of pop into my mind are first, legitimately the Spirit pilots, right? Yep. So when I got furloughed from NetJets in 2009 is when they gave us the notice. You have information where you're like, hey, I think this is like, it's not looking good, right? But when you take a look at how this worked out for the Spirit pilots, it's kind of how it worked out for the NetJets folks, where you had a lot of uncertainty even up to the kind of the last minute. Are we going to get a bailout? Are we not going to get a bailout?
Yep.
What are the bondholders going to do? What are the creditors going to do? Right. And so if you just think about being in that situation as a Spirit pilot, right? Think about all the way from somebody that maybe has been a captain there for a couple decades, right? Versus somebody that, maybe downgraded to FO, but now they're senior on the list, so on and so forth. That's a lot of uncertainty that your system's dealing with for an extended period of time. And so it's kind of like, I was watching something on YouTube, I don't remember what country it is, but when they give you the death sentence, they sit you in a cell and they don't tell you what date and time it's going to happen. And one day somebody randomly walks in and boom, hey, there you go. Right. So you're on this kind of high, you're in this weird spot where there's all this tension and there's all this stress and there's all this unknown, and you're trying to kind of not only do what you need to do at work, but then go home and set things up for your family. That's really tough to go through for an extended period of time. And now I'm sure a lot of folks saw it, and I apologize, I don't remember what the gentleman's name was, but it was supposed to be like his retirement flight, and you saw the Southwest gate agents, right? Think about all those different people, right? In terms of how they've been impacted through this. And now, right, you basically get told Friday, we're shutting down in 12 hours. And now you've got to pick up the pieces and move on and go, okay, hey, for the folks that aren't retiring, obviously, right? What am I going to do next? We were talking about this kind of right before we came on air. There's obviously a lot of places that are going to do preferential hiring. Expect obviously United, Delta, American.
Well, is it
uh,
preferential hiring, or is this just because we have a lot of highly qualified airline pilots that just hit the street like that, compared from the normal avenues of applicants they're getting?
Well, there's a huge difference right now. So, number one, the hiring's really, really strong. So, in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, right, you had a lot of experienced pilots out on the streets getting jobs at Home Depot.
Right.
Right now, yes, you're going to have a lot of experienced
And not
pilots
the
on
flight department at Home Depot.
No,
either.
no, not the flight department at Home Depot. Yeah, that was in the plumbing section.
Yeah.
Versus now, you have a lot of experienced pilots hitting the streets, and there are jobs for them to interview at. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If they're not prepped, they're not going to be successful in the interviews. We've had a lot of guys over the past 12 months where, look, Spirit was, when you talk to Spirit pilots, almost to 100%, they love the company, love the job, right? The scheduling, how they were treated, how they were paid, like they really love the company. So now you're off property. You don't want to be off property. And now you're having to interview at another company to explain why do you want to be here? Right. And now that company's wondering, hey, are you just here obviously because you just lost your job, which that's obviously part of it. But the other part of it is, do you actually want to be here, or are you just here because you're desperate? Right. How your logbooks.
Yeah.
Are you guys going into your logbook every week and making sure you're logging landings and instrument time accurately? Exactly. No. Right. Logbook's out of date, paperwork out of date. When you've been in a job for a decent amount of time, right, you have to reorient yourself. Now you're going from a mode of being comfortable and living your normal everyday life, and flying is just the job. It's a part of your life, to now your whole job is finding a new job, right? That is a huge mental shift that folks are going to have to go through. So they're going to get preferential interviews, but the interviews are not going to be easier, and they're not just going to be given the job based on the experience. So the Spirit pilots themselves are going to have some work cut out ahead of them. But if they put the work in, thankfully, there's some really good jobs that people are going to land in. Some folks are obviously, or probably a majority of the folks are going to stay 121. Some folks may switch into corporate, but they're going to land some good jobs. The difficulty becomes, if you were one of those pilots at a NetJets or a FlexJet or a regional or someplace else, if you already have a conditional job offer, right, you're going to still have your conditional job offer. You're still going to be going to class, no big deal. But if you're waiting on an interview, that's roughly about 2,000 pilots that have to be cleared through the system. Now, understand, not every one of those pilots is going to want to continue flying. Some of them are going to leave the industry. Not every one of those pilots is going to be eligible for a job. Some are going to retire. Not every one of those pilots is going to necessarily be qualified to go straight to a legacy airline, depending on what their flight time is, depending on what their PIC time is, so on and so forth, right? So those folks are going to get distributed amongst a number of different places. But let's just, for argument's sake, say every one of those 2,000 pilots is qualified to go to a legacy airline. You're still looking at Delta this year. I think it's somewhere between 2,000 and 2,300 pilots they're going to hire. So one of the three legacies could absorb every single, they're not going to, right? But one of those legacies could absorb every one of the Spirit pilots and be completely okay. So what it is likely going to do is extend out the timeline it's going to take for folks to move to that next step, but it is not going to end your ability to move to that next step. The other variable in that is, obviously we still have some things going on with gas prices and whether tankers can or cannot go through the Strait of Hormuz, so on and so forth. So there's still some other variables in the market that we're watching to make sure that as folks are having to compete more aggressively for the jobs than they expected, that they're able to do that tactically and strategically.
Yeah. So when you're talking about the math of the thing, you alluded to with the absorption rate of a single airline being able to absorb all those pilots, which obviously we have more than just one airline hiring. And you're talking about in the neighborhood of like just over 2,000 pilots. I can't find an exact number anywhere, but
it's about 2,000.
2,000, 2,200, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the good news, the bunch of pilots hit the street. But the good news is the absorption rate will be able to absorb those pilots. It's not going to take a year even, right? I mean, that's
so here's the variable. If everything goes according to plan, every single one of those pilots should be absorbed into the system by the end of the year. I do want to be clear. There are folks that are going to be furloughed from Spirit that are not going to make the mental shift quick enough, and they're going to tank some interviews. Right? So the folks that get their mind wrapped around, okay, like I know this sounds really, really dumb, but getting the logbooks in order makes a huge deal when you walk in the door. Going through the application and making sure it's all squared away, there's no spelling errors. Like, you don't want to be walking in the door to an interview with everything looking rushed and having them go, oh, you think this is a formality. You don't want to start an interview on your back foot, right? But let's just assume that everybody does that properly, right? Then the system has the ability to absorb all of them by the end of the year. Okay. But
right now, with the
right
numbers
now,
right now.
that's
That's the
exactly
thing,
correct.
dude. The fuel situation and the fuel cost, that's a major threat to this business. I mean, you see all the, other airlines, especially European ones, are like cutting flights and things. I mean, that's a major, major threat. And everybody has their fingers crossed that this is a temporary situation. But that being said, there's no clear end date to this thing. And that's a major threat to this business. And it drags on long enough. You'll see, our big name airlines here in the U.S. will have to start making some changes besides just jacking the bag fees and the fares for the summer, because that's a major impact to the business model. Interestingly enough, what's the last U.S. airline that ceased operations like this? You guys know?
Like wound down within
like this
12 hours.
Yep.
And so technically speaking, it would be Western Global is what I would believe. Oh no, they didn't wind down. They just furloughed all the MDL. I guess, I don't know. Who is it?
It was Aloha Airlines in 2008.
Oh,
and you know
yeah.
what it was due to?
Huh.
High fuel prices and competitive pressures.
Yeah. So not to put a wet blanket on the whole conversation, but everybody is only talking about the price of oil. They are not talking about terrorism events. So,
yep, and that
there's when you take a look at what there's kind of two premises you got to look at when you're taking a look at jobs being impacted. Number one is economic factors, right? You have something like a Great Recession, you have cost of fuel skyrocketing, right? But there's something economically happening that's having less people go out and either have the ability to afford a flight or want to go out on a flight. Okay. But the other side is when you have a situation where people don't feel safe getting on the airplane. That's 2001 and 2020.
Yeah.
That's a much more difficult situation to resolve, and it takes much longer.
And the bottom drops out like that. That's the scary thing.
Precisely correct. It's like that Tower of Terror at Disney. The bottom just drops out. And so if you start having things blowing up, right, that starts impacting people's willingness to travel. And so right now we are not dealing with that. But for me personally, it's not only watching what's going on with the price of oil, but it's also watching what's going on with business travel, and it's watching what's going on the terrorism front, because those are the three things you need to pay attention to have a good idea on what's happening and going to happen in the industry. Right now, people are absorbing the cost of the Hyatt ticket fares, right? Business travel has not appeared to have slowed down. So in the US, it's okay right now. It may not be great, you may not be excited about it, but it's not a catastrophic event right now. So when we're talking about Spirit, the only thing we can do is go based on the information we currently have, right? And so the assumption is if everything stays the way it is, yes, they're going to be processed through okay. We also don't know what are going to happen with the Spirit airplanes.
Yeah.
Who's going to absorb them? What are they going to do with them? Where are those airplanes going to go? What's going to happen with the engine? So on and so forth, right? So JetBlue's already making moves to South Florida. What's United going to do? What's American going to do? There's a lot of things that are going to change very rapidly through this. And if you're staying on top, and this is why when we're working with our folks, we have an internal meeting we're doing here within about the next 7 days where we're talking specific strategy in terms of what to look for. Because if you move fast and you know what you're paying attention to, you will end up with a job when other people won't, because you're taking advantages of gaps in the system.
James, I got to imagine when you work with people, just in general, the higher up on the seniority list you were, the harder it's got to be in general to come to that next interview, right? If I was a captain at Spirit for 15 years and now I've got to go back to that, it just seems like that's going to be different than maybe you taking that 1 year, that first officer that's been on the seniority list for 1 year and has kind of recently been in the job hunt. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the traps of like, yeah, I got 8,000 hours in the Airbus. They'll hire me for sure versus maybe that lower time person.
It's funny. I was having some conversations with folks about that the other night. It actually, so yes, it does somewhat correlate to seniority, but it's actually not seniority, it's comfortability. And so the problem is when you've been in a company for a really long period of time and you gain seniority, like I flew for the FAA for 15 years. You just get to a point to where you understand the system. People don't bother you anymore. When you walk into the room, you understand how to communicate with people on the team to get things done efficiently. And so there's just a lot less friction in your day-to-day life, right? That's what experience gets you. The problem is now you're going into a new operation where all there's going to be is friction because you don't understand exactly how the system works. You don't necessarily have the culture down. You're taking a status decrease. So you're going from someone that's really, really senior to somebody really, really junior. And so those things are difficult. And so what they're scoring when they're talking to you in a networking setting or when they're talking to you in an interview setting is how flexible and resilient are you going to be through that adjustment? And a lot of that's nonverbal, right? You ever watch someone that's like really, really senior and you can just kind of tell they're like kind of settled into the groove and really don't care about a lot of things? That's a lot of the stuff that dings people is the nonverbal. That's why, like I said, when we do like the interview prep and stuff, we video record everything so we can show you back on video. Okay, that's what's happened. It's that tone right there. It's see how your eyes moved right there. See how your shoulder, like a lot of it is how people are presenting in ways they don't realize. And so you don't need to go in and be paranoid, right? But you need to be able to acknowledge, yeah, no, it's gonna be a huge shift. Like I'm going from a senior captain to a junior FO, right? When they're like, well, hey, what's that going to look like? Well, I'm really excited about the new opportunity. It's like, no, you're probably not. So the ability to talk about that openly and honestly and genuinely is going to make a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
That's why, like I said, when you walk into the interview, when you're thinking about resumes, when you're thinking about applications, when you're thinking about logbooks, think about all the paperwork stuff. That is actually the first impression they have of you before you walk in the room. So if you look like you just threw everything together, shot it in because, hey, I got a preferential interview. And by the way, I've been doing this for 20 years. And so I'm really, really skilled. I'm going to be a great addition to the team. You're walking into the interview on a back foot and you're going to get hammered. And you're going to have to now justify that you're not going to be a problem when you get there.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough mindset shift for those people. It would be hard for me. It would be hard for anybody, man. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm in that position, but at some point, you're going to have to step outside yourself and look and say, all right, where this is just the deck, the cards I've been dealt, and I need to have a positive attitude and figure this out, without any sense of entitlement.
If anyone's ever gone out and dated after a divorce, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, you've been out of the dating game for 25 years and now you're going in, you're showing up to dates in sweatpants.
I knew you'd have a metaphor for this, James.
Yeah, your dad jeans and your New Balance sneakers.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. But I mean, think about it, right? Or it's like, anybody that's gone back for a master's degree after being out of college for 15 years, you're out of that mindset, you're out of that zone, and now you're going back in, right? And it's uncomfortable and it's weird. So that's why it's helpful to get yourself into the mindset of, hey, look, what am I trying to accomplish here and how do I put my best foot forward? Because the worst thing you can do is show up to a first date in sweatpants and your New Balance sneakers.
So, okay, so there's time. You got to have time for the makeover for a minute. I'm a Spirit pilot right now. I imagine all of them worked on their resumes over the weekend. Every application was filled out, all that stuff. That maybe isn't the best, like, maybe getting the interview as quickly as possible isn't the best strategic move, maybe. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, you want to make sure that you're ready for the opportunity. So the difficulty is some of these guys are going to get interviews faster than they're ready, and some of them are going to have enough time to get ready. First things first, if I was a Spirit pilot right now, I'd be flipping through my crew pairings and I would find the FOs that I flew with that were furloughed previously, right? If I was an FO, the folks I was in class with that were already furloughed, that are already someplace else, I'd be getting on the phone with them and I'd be going, where are all the places that you interviewed? What are all the things they hammered you on? What were the things that kind of created friction and resistance? Because I want to start getting mentally prepared for where am I going to run into problems, and I want to start solving those problems before they become problems. A lot of the stuff you can do pretty quick. Like I said, hopefully folks were downloading the logbook data prior to the wind down. Do not show up with a printed out report. You got to get that into a digital logbook. Start that now. Start taking a look at your FA, your PRD files, start pulling your driving record, start pulling your college transcripts, start getting all the documentation together so you can start looking through everything and getting it all looking pretty. Start making the reconnecting to the folks that you've flown with previously. If you don't have their contact information, get on LinkedIn, get on Facebook, get on Instagram, get on any social media platform you can and start typing the names in and looking for them. Start reaching out and connecting to them. Remember, they've been through the process that you're going through right now. They're a huge emotional support structure, right? Anybody that is an ex-Spirit pilot, I guess I can't say 100% of them, but I bet you 99.9% of them are going to be willing to do anything they can to bend over backwards and help the folks that they've worked with previously, including sharing experiences. But you are correct. For some folks, this is going to happen faster than they expect. And so just having been furloughed myself, the tough thing is to compartmentalize the emotional aspect of the losing your job right now and going through, I'm no longer a captain or first officer. Spirit is no longer an airline. I no longer have a paycheck coming in. I no longer have a paycheck coming in. All of the uncertainty over, am I going to get an interview? Where am I going to get an interview? How is that going to go? You've got to compartmentalize that, set that all aside right now and start getting ready. And then once the opportunities come their way, that's the time to reopen that box and go, okay, now let's process what happened. So, and I'm not saying that to be insensitive. I'm saying it just as somebody that look, when I got laid off from NetJets, I laid on the couch for about 3 weeks. I mean, every day Eileen came home and was like, what'd you do today? And I was like, I'm just trying to get myself ready, to go out and start networking with people. And it was embarrassing to walk out of the house. 3 questions in the United States you're going to get asked. What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Well, problem is if you say pilot, the next question is, where do you work? And at least with me at NetJets, nobody knew we laid off. But now anywhere in the country, somebody's seen that on the news that Spirit Airlines just shut down. So now it starts this incredibly awkward conversation. So if you think about people in this situation, they're in a really awkward spot that's very uncomfortable. So same thing, if you happen to know somebody that flew at Spirit that you're buddies with, or you flew with previously, give them a call. And all you got to have to say is, hey man, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to support, but I just want to call and check in and see how you're doing. It will go a long way.
That's well said. Yeah, that was one of my next questions. What can we do as the greater pilot group to assist here? And I think, like you mentioned, being able to share our recent experiences applying for jobs, that'll be huge.
Intelligence.
Yeah.
The more because you got to remember, they're making a shift, right? So their house just got bulldozed through a hurricane. And they're now standing outside having to pick up the pieces and figure out how to do an insurance claim to go, right? Like think about everything you have getting basically imploding in on itself. So if you've ever been in a spot like that, the logical portion of your brain shuts down and the emotional portion takes over. It's a really hard spot to be in. And now think if that person has a husband or wife, if they have children, they have anybody that's dependent on them. Now they not only have their own difficulties that they're going through, but then their family's difficulties that they're going through. So if you can just reach out and call, you don't even have to have an answer. All you got to do is say, hey, look, man, wanted to check in, see if you're okay. I don't know the right thing to say or do. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. By the way, here's what my experience has been over the past 6 months, and start helping them get on their feet. It's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and I think you might expect some people you haven't heard from in a while to reach out. Like I know I've sent internal recs for people that were jumping ship from Spirit before it sank that I hadn't talked to in a long time. But that being said, they were good dudes back when back in college or whatever it may be, and they would fit good at our airline. And so, I definitely vouched for them. So that's one of the biggest things you can do to help too is somebody that's applying at an airline you work for. They do have to be worthy of the recommendation, but I think that's one of the big things you can do to help if there's somebody that that is asking for help.
So can I give some free advice on the recommendation
Please.
stuff real quick? So we've had a number of clients do this and it's worked out really, really well. Before they reach out to someone to ask for a letter of recommendation, they create a one sheet. So, Max, what they would do for you is, they would go, okay, top of the one sheet would be what their certificates and ratings are, what all their total flight times are, how much time they have in each individual airplane, and then it's going to be a breakdown of their work history, right? So that's top half of the sheet. The bottom half of the sheet is them writing out details on how you met, how they know you, what things you have done together, what companies you've worked for. It's kind of a memory jogger sheet that you can hand out to each person that you're going to ask for a letter of recommendation. And now they can take that and it helps them write so much better, so much more meaningful of a letter of recommendation for you. So the top half of that sheet's going to be the same to every single person that you send it to. The bottom half of the sheet, they're going to sit down and actually tailor for each individual person. Oh, and by the way, if you're like me and you're somebody that really struggles to write things down organized, pull out the notes section of your phone and talk into it. Hey, I met Max here. We flew here. We did A, B, and C. Pump it into ChatGPT and go create this one sheet for me so that I can hand it to Max so he can write me a letter of recommendation. And it will create the summary for him.
And then the people will take the one sheet and then they'll feed that into Grok and
I
then
was just
they
thinking
write
that.
the letter. Right, that's exactly what's going to happen.
So
this is exactly what's going to happen.
Let's actually talk about that real quick. So because it's a really valid point. So first of all, just going back to that one sheet, the point of that is to make the person's life easier that's writing the letter of recommendation and increasing the quality of it. If I'm going to get a letter of recommendation from somebody, I want it to actually be quality. I do not, under any circumstances, write the letter of recommendation for the person for me. I can't write 6 individual letters of recommendation well. Okay. If folks think they're going to go into Grok or ChatGPT or anything like that and say, hey, write me a letter of recommendation for Dylan or for Max, it's going to come out like shit. It's not gonna, it's gonna read just like somebody did that and went into ChatGPT. Even if you go out and remove the M dashes, it's still gonna come across like crap. Having said that, if you take the time and you write the letter of recommendation yourself and then pump it through and say, okay, hey, can you give me suggestions on questions I should ask Dylan or Max? Or can you take a look? Is there any way you can smooth out the sentence structure? That it can help. It's a really good editor. But like when we write cover letters for people, when we write resumes for people, we handwrite them. It's not going like,
what?
Yeah,
with a pen?
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say with a pen. Do you have a big plume? Is it a feathered pen?
It's actually a quill, is what we do.
Bring forth the scribe.
Yeah. So AI is a great editor.
Yeah.
But don't just pump it through and go, okay, hey, write me this. It's not going to go really well. But if you take the time, create the one sheet for the person. If that person takes the time and writes out the letter, then if you want to pump it through and go, hey, run it through a filter, knock yourself out. But don't go in and take the one sheet. It's going to look like shit.
Yeah. And like you said, it's very obvious. It's easy to detect.
I go through and I test the different AI platforms a lot on what they can and cannot do. We still do the interviews for the resumes and the cover letters. We still do the writing for the resumes and the cover. Like, it cannot do it. And that's with professionals that have written thousands of resumes that know the exact questions to ask. Still can't do it. So, I mean, if you want to pump it through and do it on your own and hand it in, knock yourself out. Give us a call when you're done.
Let's take a quick break to tell you about a friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope.
Tim is a certified financial planner who specializes in helping professional pilots chart a smarter financial course. Whether you're focused on retirement, investment management, or strategic tax planning, Tim brings the tools and insight to help you make the most of your career and beyond. He's also the host of the Pilot's Portfolio podcast, where he breaks down real-world financial strategies designed specifically for pilots. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. One last thing I wanted to revisit that we mentioned, and this would have been maybe at least a year ago, when Spirit first started to kind of look like they were heading in the wrong direction. The flute was starting to play there. And you said on the first wave of people being furloughed, hey, this maybe isn't such a bad thing, being the first ones out the door.
Yeah, my buddy texted me about that the other night about that episode. He's like, hey, it looks like the guys that got furloughed originally, it wasn't, that's the way it works, man. You want to be the first one out the door. It sucks, but you want to be the first one out the door. Those are the guys at all those senior cabins are going to be calling up going, hey, where did you end up? Hey, can you write me a letter? You're now, the senior cabins are going to be junior to the junior FOs.
Yeah.
It's just the way the business works, man. Folks tend to talk about the downsides of corporate aviation, right? You have to negotiate your own salary. You don't have a union. Accounts go away, right? So those are the negatives, right? Well, the same thing, the negatives on the airline side is you live and die by seniority. It's a tough game to play.
Absolutely. Anything else specifically for the Spirit pilots, James, before we shift gears and talk a little bit more about the macro piece of
The biggest thing, having been through multiple furloughs myself personally, your success will be dictated by your support structure. I knew everything that I needed to do when I got laid off from NetJets. I knew how to write the resumes. I knew how to do the applications. I knew how to interview, right? I couldn't get up off the couch. It's not a matter of just intellectually knowing what to do. You have to have your support structure in place, right? That's your family. That's whether you work with us at Raven, right? But you have to have your support structure in place, because there's going to be points of this where people are going to have to carry you through it, and that's okay. Once you get back up on your feet, you pull that compartment back out of all the tough feelings and thoughts, and you start working on processing it at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you got to get your support structure put together.
Well said. All right. Let's shift gears and talk about the rest of the pilots out there looking for jobs. It's part of the aviation journey it just seems like there's always a new kick in the groin every few months. It's like, oh, no, it's this war in Iraq, boom, and then it's another unforeseen thing, boom, and now you just said 2,000 pilots that are more qualified than me just hit the job market, boom, it's another shot, and it just feels like the hits keep coming. Let's first talk about who is going to be the most impacted pilot outside of the Spirit pilot group. I'm assuming it's the regional captain who's on the verge of getting hired at a major. But who do you think is the one that's maybe going to feel the most or experience the most change here in these given events?
So we know that the hiring in the industry is really dictated by United, Delta, American, Southwest.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. As those companies hire, that pulls people up from corporate, pulls people up from regionals, pulls people up, from all those ultra low cost carriers.
Yep.
Please don't take this disrespectfully, but what a lot of people consider to be mid-tier jobs. I get it. Plenty of people make Frontier a full-on career. Plenty of people make NetJets a full-on career. Plenty of people make Part 91 a full-on. I'm not saying you can't do that, but there's a lot of people that consider that kind of a mid-tier job. And then when they're taking a look at kind of those top tiers, it's you're talking about basically four carriers. Okay. When you have a company go out of business, a Spirit, right? United, Delta, American, Southwest, thankfully they're hiring, but they're going to absorb all those Spirit pilots, which means that's less NetJets or FlexJet or regional pilots or whoever leaving their job to go to United Delta American. When you have less of those people leaving, guess what? That means that if you are a flight instructor or an aerial survey pilot, or you are a corporate pilot that's looking to swap into the regionals, it now becomes harder to do that because there is more competition. The thing that folks need to differentiate is there's a huge contrast between a company going out of business, Spirit, and nobody else hiring, which means those pilots are now going to get absorbed by at every level of the industry,
Yeah.
right? Versus, okay, hey, this is now they're getting processed through at a higher level, so I just need to give it some time while I work my way through. If you are competing for a job at the regionals or a NetJets or a FlexJet, or even at a United Delta American, I'm not going to go into it in detail on here, but there are some very targeted ways to compete against a Spirit pilot where you will come out on top 9 out of 10 times. And so if you're a Spirit pilot going into the interview, you need to understand what your personal strengths and weaknesses are and the strengths and weaknesses of the people that are competing against you. Well, the same is in reverse. If you're one of those pilots competing for a job, you need to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are against your own personal strengths and weaknesses, but the strengths and weaknesses of a Spirit pilot if you're competing against them, or strengths and weaknesses against other CFIs, other regional pilots, so on and so forth, whoever you're competing against. If you understand that, yes, the hiring is going to get tighter, but it's not going to go away. So you're just in a better position to compete at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So really, everyone's going to feel it. It's not just that regional captain.
You're going to feel it. Yeah, you're going to feel this through.
The flight instructors are still going to feel it.
You're going to feel it all the way through. You get this brand new student graduating college is now trying to get the first CFI job and they can't find one.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we know we're getting emails every single day from folks that are I mean, is this the right mental model to almost think of a ladder? And there's all these people on this ladder. And it's sort of like one guy at the top takes a step, then the next guy takes a step. And it's like, if you're at the bottom of the ladder, there's a log jam until that very top person moves and then the next person can move. Is that a good way to visualize it? Or is there a better, I'm guessing you have a better metaphor for us.
No, it is sort of that, but really where I've been having a lot of conversations with this. I've been doing a lot of coaching sessions with parents and their kid graduating college.
Yeah.
Because the parents want to support the kid and the kid is like, how do I get a job? The difficulty is when we went into college, 9/11 happened. So our perspective on what this was going to look like was a dumpster fire. It was, hey, we're going to have to compete. So we had a 2 or 3 year delay in college to figure out how to compete. So that by the time we graduated, not only was the market easing a bit, but we had the skill set to compete in a market where, you'd have 10 people go into an interview and 1 or 2 might walk out with a job. But for the folks that are graduating now, they started college around coronavirus. They saw 2 years of 13,000 pilots a year getting hired. Every one of them went, I thought there was going to be a job when I was done. Like, I thought the hard work was the flight training. And I'm not saying that to make fun of anybody. I'm saying that in terms of the expectation is different.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the skill set to compete. Right? So for example, if I was a new CFI right now graduating college and I'm applying to flight schools and I can't get a job, I'm walking around to independent flight instructors and going, give me any one of your students that you hate that you never want to fly with again. I'll take them. Right? And I'll start building a book of students just based on any instructors that are overworked, any instructors that have students they don't want to fly with, any instructors that have students that are running into plateaus. They're having trouble with landings or cross countries or slow flight or stalls or whatever. I'll go take them up for 2 or 3 hours. I'll get them squared away and I'll bring them back. Right? I'm the expert on instrument proficiency checks and biennial flight reviews. I'm talking to the local sales guys about who in the local market needs to get current. Really easy example, airplane I fly has been down for maintenance for the past 3 months, right? It's now up and running. I'm out of landing currency and I'm out of instrument currency, right? You have a local MEI in the area. guess what? You get 2 hours of free multi-time. Let's go. Right? There's all these other creative ways to get flight time. It's not like going to an ATP flight school in Embry-Riddle where they're going to give you 10 students and they're going to go fly 7 days a week. Right? But the thing is, you can start to piece together a student base that you can gradually build into a book of business where you're building flight time. But that's really hard to do. And there's going to be a lot of rejection there, and there's going to be a lot of failure there. And so they were sold a bill of goods of there's a clear path to go from where you're at all the way to a major airline, right? Hey, join our cadet programs and you'll go straight into a regional job. It's not that they're entitled. It's that they came into the industry with a certain expectation and it is not going according to plan. And they now don't have a plan B. They don't know what to do. So most of what we're doing, and this is people at all levels, it's not just the brand new CFI graduating college, is sitting down in the coaching sessions and going, hey, look, what have you been doing that's working? What have you been doing that's not working? And let's talk about how to develop an actually unique strategy based on where you're at in terms of how do you start moving towards that goal, but then also setting a clear expectation of, hey, look, this is what we're seeing when people get really aggressive with this and they're executing. This is roughly the timeline this is happening on. If you're not going to be as aggressive here, having a rough idea of expected timeline so you can tell, am I successful at this or am I failing, is really important. If you're just taking shots in the dark, going, I'm going to push really, really aggressively and hope, you're going to run out of steam pretty quick.
I just love that idea because getting out there and hustling, because that is, I feel like that's part of your education at this point. If you want to be a successful pilot, especially if you're going to be in business aviation, those skills that you make, selling yourself, selling your services, networking with people, going out and finding the work, you're going to be able to trade on that for the rest of your career. It's not like it's just for, this short interim time. It's going to be it's going to pay dividends throughout your career, I think.
Well, and it never gets easier. I mean,
yeah.
A very easy example, right? Yesterday at 10 a.m., you texted me and went, hey, are you available for a podcast today? My parents were in town, right? So I went, yeah, sure. What are we looking at here, right? And then we couldn't get the time worked out. So we went, okay, how about Monday? And my time didn't work with your guys' time. So we both rearranged our schedules because we said, hey, this is important, right? Hustling is about you have to make the adjustments you need to make to let the opportunity come your way. And I'm not trying to sound like cheesy about this. It's just, but being successful is very inconvenient. And it's never going to be convenient. It just, I probably sound like a jerk right now, but it's just, being successful is extraordinarily difficult. Even me, where I have a lot of friends and a lot of people know who I am, it doesn't get easier. You are still twisting yourself in a pretzel to make things work for the people around you. You're trying to be as accommodating as you can be. You're trying to reduce friction on other people the maximum you can. Today was a great example. We ended up settling on a time to meet today that I don't think was exactly convenient for any of us.
Yeah,
it was just the best that we could make happen, right?
Yep.
But the thing is, we've agreed, hey, look, this is important. We want to make this work. And so I made some sacrifices. You guys made some sacrifices, and now we're here. If you're looking to be successful comfortably, it's not going to work. But you don't want to arbitrarily run into walls and go, ooh, that hurt, therefore it's good. It's like, no. We need to. I was watching something the other day where they said any exercise done wrong is a lower back exercise, right? It's like you don't want to arbitrarily create pain for yourself. That's why having a personal trainer is important, right? They're helping you with form. They're making sure the work that you're going to do that's going to be hard, that's going to be uncomfortable, is at least producing the result that you want. And that's the mindset people have to get into, a competitive mindset right now, because you're going to compete.
Yep. You're still looking for the path of least resistance, but there will be resistance.
It's going to be uncomfortable. But just like working out, as long as I know the discomfort that I'm putting my through is going to lead to muscles, I will keep doing it. But if I've got bad form and it hurts just to hurt,
So how's that going?
I'd go home and eat
your
ice cream,
workout
man.
regimen, James?
Oh, I don't work out. I just deal with the back pain.
Yeah, watch how we didn't buy
Look at
tickets
these-
to the gun
Look at
show.
these non-muscles.
Look at
Look at that. Look at that.
Exploding. All right. Last topic. This is easy. This will be, so we all know what's going to happen here. Let's just quickly just tell everyone, since they may not know, what's going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz.
Just
What's
quickly,
going to
if
happen
you
with
can.
oil prices? And just it's just a couple minutes here. But obviously no one knows. But where could you maybe see things going in the best case scenario and worst case scenario with the oil? The terror stuff I know it's a completely other unpredictable thing. But what are you watching right now when your clients are like, what's going to happen with this war? What should I be paying attention to? What could happen if things go south? What happens if things go north? What do you think, James?
Sure. So there's two guys on YouTube that I watch daily that talk about this. One of them is John Mearsheimer. It's Mearsheimer. He's a professor at the University of Chicago. And the other guy is an Air Force strategist. His name is Robert Pape, Pape. And specifically what you want to look at is Iran and the escalation trap. And so those are the two folks that I watch almost on a daily basis that are talking about strategically kind of what's happening. Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. Anybody that tells you they know is blowing smoke up your rear end. We're in a tough spot. We need an exit ramp, and I don't think anyone sees one yet. And so, far as my understanding, and folks that are listening to this are probably going to be more knowledgeable than I am, but I believe we are a net exporter of energy. So this is not going to impact us the way it's going to impact other areas of the world. But it's still going to impact.
Yeah.
And so right now, when you're in a period of high uncertainty, this is about how do you put yourself in a position to be resilient, right? This is you start warming up your network now, right? You start taking a look at developing other useful skill sets now.
Okay, and I want to pause you there for a second because if you remember when we did our 200th episode a couple months ago, we were starting to get messages not from the people you would expect, like the CFIs and the regional pilots. We were getting messages from the junior pilots at United and Delta.
Yeah.
Going, should I be afraid? Should I be warming my network up here? So are you starting to get calls from those people as well?
So junior folks at the legacies, am I getting calls? Yes, but it's more like, hey, what are your thoughts on what's going on? They're not like looking for other jobs or anything.
Right.
I think it's genuinely always a good idea to have a warm network. The problem is if you have like a personal life and kids or anything like that, it's hard, right? It really genuinely is.
Yeah.
If you're in a situation, let's remove United, Delta, and American, right? Or you can keep them in the mix. Depends on whatever you want. But if you're working for a company right now that's not in a good cash position, right? They don't have savings to weather the storm. You should be spending some time thinking about this. You should be spending some time thinking about where are your friends at, checking in and going, hey, how's it going? It's a lot easier to warm up the network when you don't need something from someone than when, your company's in the news. You should start taking a look at your own experience. Once again, strengths and weaknesses. Where are my strengths? Where are my gaps? If there's any place where you have gaps and you want to start filling those, lots of folks will tend to fill them with non-aviation things. It's not going to hurt. Do I think you're in a situation where you're going to use it tomorrow? No. I mean, I'm not. There's nothing I'm seeing right as of today at 11:58 a.m. Eastern time on May 4th that's going like, oh my God, the train's going to come off the tracks. And when you have a period of high uncertainty, I'd rather be prepared for some things and not use it than find out I could have been preparing and didn't use it. But it's not like if you're already at a place where you have a good job or you're comfortable. It's not resumes, applications, and interview prep. It's, hey man, do you have that real estate license you're looking at finishing up? Do you have the skills to network with other folks? Do you want to start developing a network outside of aviation, inside of aviation? Like, it's going to be different for each person depending on where they live in the country, what their financial goals are, so on and so forth. But yeah, man, it's not going to hurt you to warm some things up right now and just have them on the back burner. I would not be in panic mode right now. I would not. I wouldn't be freaking out. It's just one of those, like, why would I want to wait till I have to run at a full-on sprint when I can casually walk?
Just in case.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not. Just 100%, man.
Keep the wheels moving. Okay. So I kind of threw us off on a tangent there, and you were mentioning you were looking at some analysis. Nobody knows right now, but
makes you feel any better. I don't think the White House knows either.
They know the midterms are coming up. They know Iran is running out of the ability to store oil, and so there's pressure points from everybody.
It's a game of chicken right now.
Yeah, really is.
And both sides have different assumptions on who's going to blink when.
These pressure points are relatively in the near term. That's the good news. Hopefully, like we're talking weeks, not months.
Yeah,
hopefully. Yeah, exactly.
Not, my crystal ball's in the shop, so
always,
James.
Every time we call you, it's always in that shop. I would get a new shop. Yeah,
I think the guy working on it keeps trying to use ChatGPT to figure out how to fix it, which is why it's been gone for so long.
Right, exactly. Got to go to Grok. So to summarize here, it's a headwind. We think the oil situation. We at this current time. You don't really see a contraction.
This is an inconvenience right now. This is not.
Yeah.
This is. I wouldn't even.
But you wouldn't even say.
I don't want to be insensitive. Like, but yeah. Are you going to have to compete a little more? Absolutely. But like, this is the system can absorb these pilots.
Yeah.
This is not.
But you're not seeing any.
But to your point, like when this has this could be the catalyst for something that gets really bad, where like this comes to a head, and then there's a domestic terror attack or whatever that really then falls off the cliff. So that's.
But your timeline of looking out 3 to 4 weeks from now and finding out who blinks, that's when you're going to have a better idea on what that actually looks like. Right, but right now, as of today, right, everything stays the way it is.
So you don't see United saying, hey, the price of oil's too high. We're going to, we thought we were going to hire 3,000. We're going to hire 1,500. We haven't seen anything like that yet, right?
So you got to remember, those machines take a long time to spool up, and they can spool them down pretty quick. But the problem is the spool up time is way longer.
Right.
I think you have a higher probability of them delaying putting people in class or slowing down the amount of people they're bringing into an interview, but like stopping the interviews would really hurt them bad. Now you have a September 11th, shut the whole HR system down. We're not going to be using that for a while, right? Yeah. You have a coronavirus where when that looked like, hey, that could be 24 to 36 months. Yeah, you got to spool down a system like that. But no, they can delay putting people in classes. They can knock off the amount of people they're bringing in interviews by 10, 20, 30%. And I understand like that will create pain for people, but that's not catastrophic. That's just inconvenient. Remember, having to wait a little bit longer, as long as you're continually progressing towards that goal, you're having to wait, but so is everybody else. You're not losing relatively, right? You're not losing relative seniority or anything. So as long as you're staying on it and you're not, like I said, keeping the network warm, keeping the applications updated, things like that, so that when they kick it back up, if they were to pull it back, you're in a good spot. It's perfectly fine. But right now, this is inconvenient. I mean, we don't even know what's going to be done with the airplanes yet. You can end up depending on what happens and who does what with the airplanes, right? That can be absorbed, maybe not completely, but partially in other areas. So no, I wouldn't freak out yet.
Max, do you want to make an announcement about Southwest's new fleet?
I don't think I'm I don't think
Are
I'm
you guys changing
ready
the
for
paint
that
scheme?
yet. No.
You gotta. No, you're not ready to. Okay. All right. Let's.
How would Southwest fly an Airbus without auto throttles?
Yeah, I'm just like, this
You guys
is too
just fly
much.
the things around in direct law? I mean,
We're going to be stepping down a level of automation here. And
Yeah. I just can't do this.
Yeah.
Last thing, James, before I get you out, have any of the recent events made corporate more appealing to people, or maybe exposed some strengths that corporate has that maybe people didn't realize in the past? And have you had any clients that are maybe sort of shifting their focus? I mean, especially when it comes to like fuel price and stuff, I would say that especially the smaller operators, maybe not as sensitive, to versus these large fleet operations, maybe terrorism type stuff. Maybe that's, an appeal, sort of like during coronavirus when maybe having your own airplane is maybe appealing. So,
or when you're in a K-shaped economy.
Right. Exactly.
So yes, there has definitely been a transition probably over the past 24 months of more people looking into corporate. The difficulty that they have is the airlines are a clear path, right? You fill out this application, you go to this job fair. So it makes sense to them. In corporate, there's a million different paths to get into those cockpits. And that's what confuses people. The ones that are successful at it are the ones that really take to the relationship nurturing and development. The understanding of don't call someone when you need something. You need to be talking to people when you don't need anything. So those relationships are nice and warm and nurtured. But it's also, look, it's a harder path. You run into insurance companies that go, you need to have more time to go do this, right? Or you get I just had someone the other day that actually was not successful in regional training. And, over the course of 3 weeks, went from, hey, is my career over, to 2 different corporate opportunities in their lap. So if you understand the relationship nurturing and the relationship development stuff, you can actually get really, really far. But you are going to spend a lot of time driving places and talking to people that is not going to have a direct result at the end of that conversation. But 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year later, stuff pops out of the woodwork. So yeah, I would expect to see a lot more people pivoting towards that, especially at the lower end while they're waiting for other things like regionals to open up.
All right. Your parents are still visiting, James. We need to let you back to visiting with your family. You made enough sacrifice for these opportunities.
Yeah, my parents come out once a year. My parents come out to Columbus, Ohio,
and you get the text from us. Hey, we're doing. Can we get free advice, please?
Yeah.
You help everyone, James. Hey, what do we do?
That's right. My mom and dad were tired of hearing me talk about Spirit anyway. So.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time. Great advice as always for everyone in the industry. James Onieal is our Sherpa. His link will be in the show notes for Raven Careers. I imagine you're getting a nice healthy backlog of folks that need some help.
Yes, we are. We've had a nice healthy backlog for a while now. Big thing. Folks can obviously get me on LinkedIn, go to the website, click on the contact us. But yeah, it's been pretty busy, which we appreciate. Everyone's been very patient.
Right on. Well, James, as usual, you are a cornucopia of knowledge. We appreciate your time, and I guess we'll see you
Say
next
hi to your parents for us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a good workout. See ya.
Yeah. Spirit shut down. Yeah. Spirit shut down, now the market got a tremor. 2,000 pilots staring down a brand new November. James on the mic with the Raven playbook. Says check your logbooks before they take a hard look. PRD transcripts, driving records too. Don't walk and rush like the job is owed to you. Senior captain to junior foe, that's a mindset shift. Preferential interview ain't an automatic gift. Network warming up while the oil charts climb. Career ladder jam, but you still got time. CFI on the rim trying to build that book. Find the students, everybody else refuse to look. Corporate path crooked, but the door still cracked. Relationship gang keeps the callbacks coming back. One sheet ready for the wreck, let a crew. Don't let the chat bot write the whole thing for you. Fuel prices bargain, street of homers on the screen. James says stay ready, not panicked or mean. Warm up the network before or you need a save. And don't show up to the first date dressed for the grave. It's the frequency. Pilots tuning and vibe. 21.5 where the pros come alive. Checklist, jet fuel, and stories that fly. It's the cockpit crew, now let's take it sky high.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.